So today in Mark's gospel, we find Mark being Mark. Very brief, yet again. He takes us through 3 different scenes in like 11 verses or something. The first, of course, is the baptism of Jesus, which we've read in other accounts twice during the past 9 months. So we get a bit of it yet again today. The second scene is following Jesus' baptism when he is driven into the desert. He is driven into the wilderness. And the third scene, of course, is when Jesus emerges from the desert and emerges into his new public ministry following the end of John's ministry. All that in 11 verses. Today, of course, I'd like to try to focus on that middle piece because this is, of course, the first Sunday in Lent. It seems appropriate that we should talk about Jesus being driven into the wilderness. And what does that mean for us here today? The scripture says that Jesus was driven into the wilderness, and it wasn't that he was just tempted. It wasn't that he was just challenged. The text describes it as wild beasts that he was facing. Now that's pretty significant. Now, do we take that literally? I don't know that we necessarily do, although that's a possibility too. But I think what that relates to us is that he was put through some significant trials. It also says there that he was attended to by angels. I think that's also of significance in this writing. Mark's not one who refers to angels much at all. In fact, there's probably only one other place I can think of in Mark's gospel where he makes mention of angels, and that would be at Jesus' tomb following his resurrection, when the Marys came to the tomb and found that Jesus was no longer there. So I think that's interesting too. Who are these angels? What is this? What are these angels all about? But let's go beyond that. This temptation, this trial that Jesus faced is significant because we talk about Jesus. Our understanding of Jesus' nature is that Jesus was fully God and fully human. Homeostasis, if you are looking for a fancy theological word to describe that. Fully God and fully human all at one time. Jesus is forced into the wilderness, and he's essentially forced to face that human side of his nature. That side that can be tempted. That side that is exactly like what we are as humans. And that was like facing wild beasts. Jesus had a decision to make. Was he going to go forth into this mission that God had given him into the world, or was he going to reject that, and was he going to go with his human nature? It must have been like facing wild beasts. You know, I think there's an element of that dual nature in each and every one of us. I think there's a reflection of God in every one of us, and yet there's a reflection of evil that lurks in every one of us as well. And it's a constant battle, I think, between good and evil in each of our lives. We do plenty to perpetrate evil in the world, sometimes consciously and sometimes unconsciously. That's why in our confession we talk about things we have done and things we have left undone. It's a battle that I think each of us face in our lives, and it's a difficult one. Maybe the battle that you face is with some enemy, if you will, at work, someone who's trying to do you in order that they might get ahead. Maybe that evil that lurks out there is a family member from whom you're estranged and constantly battling with. Perhaps it's not even a person. Maybe it's not a relationship. Maybe it's a financial hardship that your family finds themselves in. But there's an evil out there that lurks, that challenges each and every one of us, and each and every one of us needs to make a decision about how we choose to respond. In my own life, I've faced this just in the last 48 hours. Had a whole series of calls yesterday back and forth with siblings and my parents, and my mother fell and broke her ankle. And it's one of several times where my mother has fallen in the last couple of years and broken bones and things. And it's created this whole big eruption within the family about, can they continue to live in that home, and what should we do, and how can we keep her safe, and all this other family systems stuff, alcoholism and pain medications and all these things that complicate it and make it difficult to deal with. And then I'm the priest in the family, and so they call me, and I'm supposed to come and make it all better somehow. We're supposed to all come together, and Mike somehow is going to help us work all that out. Well, if it were any of you who called me to your family's side at a difficult time like that, I'd be happy to do that and would do everything I can. But in this particular case, there's some of that evil that's lurking in me because, well, I got a dog in this hunt, you know? And I've got my own stuff churning around inside there. And I found it just really fascinating that looking at this gospel today, I've got this situation right here in my own life, but it's the same kind of thing each of you face. You each have things in your own families and in your relationships that are difficult. And these relationships force you to make a decision about how you choose to respond. One of the beautiful things about Lent is that it gives each of us an opportunity to stop and reflect on our lives and to think about those relationships, those difficulties that we have in our lives, and consciously think about how we might choose to react. So my decision is, I guess I'm going to try to take the high road. I'm going to need to go down and help sort some of this out this week. But I hope that you will use the occasion of these days leading up to Lent and to the resurrection of the Lord to really think about your own lives, to think about that struggle between good and evil, and choose always the good. That's all I have.